Thank you very much, and hello and welcome and good morning to our second of a number of webinars that we're running on Teams this week. We ran the Teams overview session a little while ago. At the page that you signed up for this session for Teams meetings, you can add that session to your calendar and click on view that at any point in time. That recording is live at the same link, and you can even ask questions and we'll hopefully answer those questions in that session as well. But this session is a quick half-hour session between now 11:30 in the UK on the 31st of March through to 12 midday. And what we're looking at is a little bit of a deeper dive into Teams meetings, which I covered very briefly on the Teams overview session a little earlier on. Now, this session, instead of being very much driven by slides, is going to be actually very much driven by a live demonstration using Teams so you can see how it works, but also is hopefully driven by those of you that have joined asking questions live during the session. We may or may not get any of those. We had a few in the last session that we did, so it'd be great if you do have a question that you got stuck on or that you spot as we go through now. That'd be really handy. I do want to do a quick bit of housekeeping in case this is the first session you've joined with us. We're running something called Skype Broadcast, which is a relatively old tool, and people have asked us why we're running Skype Broadcast. One of the main reasons is that Skype Broadcast works great as a webinar platform, but more importantly, it means you can just click on the link and join via the browser. There's nothing really complicated for you to do to join the webinar itself. Whereas if we did a different tool, perhaps its replacement, Teams Live Events, it would mean you'd have to join via Teams. And one of the whole points of this is explaining how to use Teams, which you might not be familiar with in the first place. So we're using Skype Broadcast, and a quick run through this window that you're looking at the moment. In the top left-hand corner, it will tell you what the name of our session is that we're running today. And this is the Teams meetings session, so you should be seeing that. If you do get a bit of a problem, and it might be worth announcing that as a broadcast, perhaps, my partner in crime, who I'll introduce in a second, Louisa, is just to refresh your browser in case something does go wrong with a particular session that you're in. If you refresh your browser, if you can't see something, that'd be a good thing to put out through as an announcement. Sorry, so what I was looking at was what the window itself looks like. Across the middle of the screen, you'll obviously see what we're broadcasting at the moment, which will be this particular slide telling you what it looks like. Just below that, you'll see there's a play and a pause button. There is a slider, so you can go backwards and forwards if you need to recatch something that I might have said. I've got an awful lot of stuff to go through in a very short space of time, so that pause and rewind button might be quite useful to you. A little bit over to the right hand side, you'll see you've got a volume, so you can turn the volume up and down, and a diagonal arrow will make what's being shown in the broadcast full screen in case it's a bit small for you to see. Along the top of the window, you'll see there's a support link which takes you through to Skype Broadcast Support. There's a link to our website where you can find out more information about us and also can engage with us if you need to talk a little bit more about other things. And also a couple of little arrows, little right arrows, that pushes what's known as the Q&A window that's on the right hand side. That'll push the Q&A window out of the way to again make the broadcast a little bit bigger if you're struggling to see what's going on, and then you can click those little arrows back again as well. And yes, you'll notice there is a Q&A panel. You can put your name in if you wish to, you don't have to, and you can post your question and then ask it either anonymously or just asking it, and we will then either bring it into the webcast or we will respond to your question. If it's a really good one, we can broadcast the question and answer, and other people can choose to like it as well. And that does bring me to a little bit of an introduction. I do have a colleague with me today, Louisa. Louisa, are you still there with me?
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our web broadcast.
Thank you very much indeed. So Louisa is helping me and making me feel comfortable so I don't feel like I'm on my own, and also will be putting up any of the questions that we've got, and I'll be coming through to her from time to time to see if we can help at all. So let's go through to the live session itself then. So I'm going to switch over to Teams and we can see what things look like in the Teams window. So we're talking about Teams meetings, and Teams meetings are similar to, if you've used Skype Broadcast meetings, they're very similar to Skype Broadcast meetings, but they do offer some additional functions and features which can be quite helpful for you. So the first thing I thought would be quite useful to do is just to quickly look at my calendar. Well, my calendar is nice and empty in Teams at the moment. If I had any meetings booked in, and it synchronizes with Outlook, your calendar, if I chose perhaps the working week view, I might see that I've got some sessions on today. Well, a very quiet day and week for me, which is excellent. So what I'm going to do, probably the first thing that would be helpful for you, is to create a new meeting. So I can create a new meeting from the Teams calendar if I want to. So I can choose new meeting. It'll ask you for the title. You can put in the people you want to put in. It's got most of the normal questions that you'd put in when you were creating a new meeting request in Outlook. And what this does is it does exactly the same thing. You add people to it, and what that will do is then go and set up a Teams meeting and invite those people using a normal Outlook invitation. If you feel a little uncomfortable with that view, then you can just go into Outlook like you normally would. You can pick the time that you want to create your meeting for. Let's suggest that we've got a meeting at 9 to half 9 today. So what I'm going to do is click on New Meeting, which brings up that meeting window like it normally would. Nothing special here. I'm going to call it the Demo Teams meeting for the want of something massively original. I'm going to add Louisa into that meeting, so I can see that Louisa in my Labs account is there. But one other thing that we've had quite a few comments on is, well, can I invite other people to my Teams meeting, whether they're using Teams or not, and whether they're inside my organization or not? And the answer is yes, you can. So I'm going to invite myself in a different account so that people can see what it looks like if it's going to an external person. So I can just add the external person just like I normally would do in my meeting invite. I could put optional people. I can do the normal things that you do with an Outlook invitation. But the next thing I'm going to do is to add the Teams details to it. So I'm just going to click Teams Meeting, or Add Teams Meeting, and that's added my Teams Meeting link into the Outlook window, which you'd expect it to. It's put in a little bit of information about what's going on as far as my meeting is concerned. And it's all working as you would expect it to do. And all I then need to do, of course, is to send that meeting request off, and then people will have access to that meeting. Now, if I wanted to do much the same thing, I'm not going to save the changes to that one. I will run through what it looks like quickly in here. So much the same thing, as I said, is create a new meeting, test meeting, add in the acquired people I want to put in. So again, Louisa, you'll see it's running exactly the same as it did in Outlook, which is hopefully quite straightforward. And again, as I say, I can add in somebody externally as well, if I wanted to, which I will do with my other accounts, which is excellent. So you'll notice it's saying, okay, I'm going to invite that person externally. I can choose various options like recurring, etc., etc. And I can also say, please join this. And I could put in other information if I wanted to, and then I can choose to send it. And what that should have done will have sent my meeting. So the meeting has been sent. It's been sent to everybody. You will find that that is in my calendar in Teams, and hopefully if everything is according to plan, it will show that it's also in my calendar in Outlook. If, of course, I was looking at the right calendar in Outlook, which it's not showing in this particular session, but that's okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show what, oh, look, it's appeared. There we are. So you can see the meeting that I created. It's immediately appeared. And I can do the usual things to join that meeting. If I want to, I could choose to right click on it from Outlook, and I could choose Join Teams Meeting. If you get a little reminder pop up, which it hasn't done for this one, then you can choose Join Meeting there, or I could go into my calendar in Teams, and I can choose to join the meeting there as well. Just before I join the meeting, one of the great advantages of Teams meetings is the ability to create the meeting and then potentially have a conversation about that meeting before the meeting even starts. So you'll notice that that meeting that I clicked on in Teams has got a whole bunch of tabs across the top of it because it's a meeting already. If you've not spotted the Teams overview session I did earlier on today, We'll talk a little bit more about tabs in that session, and we also mentioned tabs in the collaborating with a team using Teams session a bit later on today. But basically, you can see that that's added details of the meeting for me. I can see the scheduling assistant to see if Louisa is busy, available or not. But you'll also notice it's added a few other tabs across the top here. One of them is chat. So what I could do is I could start chatting to the team members or the meeting members. So I can say, hello, meeting people. And that's before the meeting has even started. One of the reasons that can be quite useful is you create a meeting, say it's 30 minutes, and you actually want to get people together to talk about a particular thing. It may be a question you need to actually have answered. With the advantage of Teams is that chat stays with that meeting forever. And what it means also is that I can choose to post into that meeting chat, and I've got something popped up about it already. I can post into that meeting chat. And I can now have that conversation before the meeting has even started. We might even get to the end of what we need to talk about with not even possibly need the meeting as well. So you can chat away about what's going on in the meeting. Louisa has already posted something back to me on the meeting, which is brilliant. I'm going to react to that with a little thumbs up and say thank you very much. You saw that popped up as a piece of toast in the bottom right hand corner. The other thing that you might want to take advantage of are meeting notes in meetings. So each meeting will get its own set of meeting notes. You'll notice that it's not been done for this meeting yet, so I've got to click on take notes to get started. And you can use the notes during the meeting or after the meeting, or even before the meeting to potentially put in an agenda, for example. And it keeps it separate. It keeps it with the meeting. It's not using OneNote or anything like that. It's just keeping a rough set of notes inside that meeting in Teams. If it was a recurring meeting, those notes obviously stick around. And anytime the meeting happens, either during, after or before the meeting, you can make changes or update those notes as you see fit. So what I might do, for example, is start my notes off and put in an agenda and say, okay, 1 start, 2 middle, and then 3 perhaps end. And that's great. And if I want to add another section, then I can have that one as notes. And then we can say 1, we X and Z, if I could put in the words, letters X, Y, and Z. So as you type, everybody who's in the meeting can add and update these meeting notes, and they're very rudimentary, but they can make pulling a meeting together quite handy. And the last thing, which I'm only lightly going to mention, is the whiteboard. The whiteboard leverages something called Microsoft Whiteboard. You can start working in that if you wish, if your organization has enabled it. And that allows you to do some rudimentary whiteboarding if you have some other equipment like a touch sensitive device, or you're joining in other ways, perhaps using something like a Surface Hub, then you can join into that whiteboard session. Again, it is organization dependent, and for this particular demo organization, I haven't enabled it particularly. So back to those meeting notes, or back indeed to the details of the meeting. I don't have to join the meeting if I don't want to. I can close that and not bother. But in actual fact, what I am going to do, because this is a discussion and chat about Teams meetings, is I'm going to hit the join button and we can see what that looks like. Now, before I go into this next piece, I'll just check back with you, Louisa. Has anybody asked anything they've got stuck on yet?
Nothing so far.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I clicked on join the meeting from the calendar in Teams. As I mentioned, I could do the same thing from the meeting invite in my Outlook. I could right click and choose join Teams as well. But that's okay. So what that's doing now is it's now saying, okay, I'm ready to join the meeting. Now it is, most people spot this big join now button in the middle, and you'll kind of go, okay, that's the thing I want to go click. I just want to join now. And that can be relevant, but you may want to check a couple of other settings before you join. And you can choose to do this. You can also make changes, obviously, once you're in the meeting, but it can be quite useful to say, for example, I want to turn my camera on as I join the meeting or off. I might want to blur my background on that calendar or the video piece as well. Or I might choose to join muted. If I'm in a very busy environment, then I will turn this to off. So I join the meeting. I don't come in with that loud amount of noise of everyone chatting away behind me in Starbucks. And if there are more than 4 people already in the Teams meeting, then it will indeed come up and show me that it'll set that to muted. And that's because there are already people in the meeting. It thinks you're going to join muted to make it a little bit easier for people to join. You'll also notice there is an option here saying PC mic and speakers. This is because this is my demonstration machine. I haven't connected any other equipment to it like a USB headset or a USB speaker box. I do heartily recommend you use that equipment if you can, because what that will do is allow you to have a better quality audio experience. So I'm using a small speaker box from Polycom, for example, today. If I wanted to change between devices, I haven't got any other devices connected on here. I could click on that and choose the other device I wanted to use, but in this particular case, I don't have one, so that's okay. There are a couple of other options down the bottom here, and this again will be different depending on your organization. So you will see audio off on the left hand side there. That's a useful one to join if you're trying to join the meeting and see what people are sharing in the meeting, but somebody else has already joined in that meeting room. When we used to have meeting rooms and actually get together face to face, then you might want to turn your audio off so that you don't have a lot of echo because somebody has already joined the audio in the meeting. Again, organization dependent, but if your organization has enabled audio conferencing for your Teams or Skype meetings, it allows people to dial into the meeting. So they haven't got a PC perhaps, or they just want to listen to the audio part, or haven't got a very good connection perhaps. I might want to join the meeting and see what's being shared on my PC, but I want to actually join via phone. This will give you the options to join via phone. It will probably be a dial-in number and a code, or if you've got a particular option set, you might even be able to set the system to call you back and join you into the meeting using your phone. The add a room option here again is organization dependent, and this, it depends on whether you have any Teams enabled meeting rooms, either Teams audio or perhaps using the Microsoft Teams Rooms system. Then that would allow you to potentially pull in a room as well. Don't need to look at any of the other options here. We're pretty much really good to go. I'm going to hit join now. What that will do is join me into the meeting. It's actually waiting for a few other people to join, and as people join the meeting you will see them appear in the Teams meeting window. So this is what Teams looks like when you've joined the meeting. You'll see it makes the meeting full screen, and you'll notice that little stage appears in the bottom there with a number of buttons with options for me to choose when I'm actually in the meeting. Now that appears if I move the mouse, so if I stop moving the mouse, that will go away. If I move the mouse, it appears again. It's one of the things that can confuse people is they go, why does that appear and why does it keep disappearing? It's because Microsoft in their wisdom decided they were trying to make things a little bit easier perhaps for you to kind of see when what's being shared rather than have those controls. So moving your mouse will make this appear. If you want it to stay there because you actually want to keep using it, then if you click the screen, then anywhere on the screen, then that should stay where it is. On the left hand side it shows you how long the meeting has been running, and that will be whether you've joined it or not. So that may say 15 minutes if you've joined 15 minutes late. So it's how long the actual meeting has been running, not, which is what used to happen with Skype for Business meetings, not how long you've been in the meeting. I could choose to turn my camera on or off. I'm going to not choose to do that because that can be a bit scary. I can also choose to mute myself if I want to in the meeting. And we could also, of course, share inside the meeting. And we might want to share a number of things. So it will, when I click the share button, which is that little kind of box with an arrow pointing upwards in it, it changes to an arrow pointing down to point you towards the area. You'll notice I can choose to share my entire desktop, or I could choose to share a particular window which I might have open. I might want to only display Outlook, for example. One of the reasons why you might want to use just the application is that if you've got any other applications that might put a little pop-up on your screen and sort of have things that you don't necessarily want to share with people from a privacy point of view, then I recommend just sharing a particular window. That's fine. It would mean that if you want to go to another window, so perhaps I'm sharing the Outlook application, if I want to go to the Excel application and have that shared through the meeting, I would of course need to share a different window rather than the entire desktop. Now, if you have multiple screens connected, this one says screen 1. I've only got one screen on this particular machine. If you have more than one monitor, then you would see which monitor it is that you wanted to display. If you had any PowerPoint files that you've stored in Office 365 that you want to share through the meeting, then you can choose to do that as well. Or you can even browse into OneDrive or SharePoint or any team sites to go and get to those PowerPoint decks too. And the last thing from this share window that I wanted to draw your attention to is the include system audio option. What that will allow you to do is to play back a video on your PC, on your desktop, and the sound from that video will come through the Teams meeting. So if you are trying to play a piece of pre-recorded video in a Teams meeting, make sure you tick that box so that the audio can come out of it. When you start screen sharing, so I'm going to screen share my window there, you'll notice that you get a red bar around the outside of the window, which hopefully you can see in the session there. You'll also notice my little reminders popped up from Outlook at last, which is lovely. The test meeting itself is due in 11 minutes. And I could, as I was talking about earlier on, choose to join online if I wanted to. But we were looking at screen sharing. As I say, red border around the outside tells you I'm sharing my screen. You will see here that the little window that's your meeting window is appearing in the bottom right hand corner, so I can quickly get to mute or stop sharing or even leave the meeting altogether if I wanted to. If I just hover up to the top of the screen, I can choose to potentially include that system audio piece. If you forgot to set that when you were doing the sharing session, you can choose to do that. I can choose to stop presenting, which will stop sharing my desktop. Or I might even want to give control of my desktop. Perhaps somebody has got a problem. You've had a quick meeting with them or a quick one-to-one chat and started sharing your screen. I could choose to give control of my screen to anybody else who's in the meeting. Now, of course, there isn't anyone else in my meeting at the moment, so I can't choose to do that. That's okay. So it tells me I'm presenting. I'm for now going to stop presenting and have a look at some of the other options that we've got sat in the Teams meeting window. So that little stage is still there because I clicked on it. If I click on the triple dots, what that will do is allow me to look at some other settings while we're in the meeting. And again, that may look a little different for you. The reason it might look a little different for you is you may have different options set in your organization that allow you to do things like potentially call you back or other things. So it may look a little different, but these are the standard default options that we have. Excuse me. So I can look at device settings to see what's going on with devices. As we were doing when we first joined the meeting, we could choose to maybe use a speaker box or a headset. I could show that meeting notes piece. So remember we looked at those meeting notes before we started the meeting. Oh, look, they're still there. They're all available. And if I wanted to, I could even click down the bottom here to view the notes tab to make it a little bit bigger. Remember, everybody in the meeting has access to these meeting notes and can update them. And also remember that not only can they update them, they can potentially also, of course, delete them. So be careful with your meeting notes. If I click on the triple dots again, I can choose to hide my meeting notes, and that's okay. What other actions have I got in there? Well, one of them is, and unfortunately it's a little grayed out and maybe a little bit difficult to see. It says info panel is disabled by policies. That's typically because there is no meeting information to this meeting, like dial-in information. I mentioned earlier on that your organization may offer audio conferencing in Teams meetings, so people can dial in by phone. And if that option is available, then you would see an option here to display what the phone number is and what the conference pin is, etc., so that you can join via phone. Doesn't apply to me here. One thing that people do sometimes get stuck on is the ability to see what's being shared, perhaps in a Teams meeting can be a little bit small, and that's fine. So you can choose the triple dots and say enter full screen, and it will take the meeting window and make it full screen and get rid of these borders and buttons around the outside edge to make things a little bit easier perhaps for you to see. So if I enter full screen, you'll see that that's now made that full screen. I haven't got any of the buttons around it. If I press escape, that will take it back out of full screen mode, and I can now see what's going on between it. Start video with blur means that what I mentioned when we were looking at the video options when we started the meeting is a great feature in Teams is that you can start your video, so you can start using your webcam perhaps, but you may want to disable what's behind my my head, and I can choose to use blur for that. Once you've started video, you can turn the blur on and off, but it does have a very good effect to actually blur my background quite nicely, and that's a great option if you want to engage with people. Then I recommend using video. It does keep people engaged, and putting blur on the background means that people can't see exactly what's behind you. It is a preview feature at the moment, live captions, but live captions can be useful if, for example, you are perhaps joining a meeting from a very noisy place. It'll take a second or two for it to get started, and again it depends on the quality of your microphone as well, but you'll see that now as I speak in real time, people can follow along and see exactly what's being said. One of the other advantages to that, of course, is if English isn't somebody's first language, then they can also choose to read what's being said. As long as you speak fairly clearly, it is pretty reliable. So live captions can potentially help you a little bit there. I'm going to turn off live captions for the moment because that's not something I need to see. The last couple of options, the keypad option is if you need to put in a keypad to do any tones that you might need to do perhaps for a particular meeting. Last two options here though are quite useful. One is start recording. If I want to record this particular meeting, what will happen is it's giving me a little pop-up to remind me what's going to happen. So I'll notice I've got a little recording icon that's now appearing down the bottom here. I also have had a little notice put across the top to remind people that it's being recorded and be careful. In the chat for this particular meeting, you'll see the various bits of chat going on, but you'll also notice that the meeting is now being recorded, and it's put a little bit of information in there to say the meeting has been recorded and the recording has started. You can go back into that meeting chat at any point in time after the meeting. That will change when the meeting is finished, and you'll then have a link available to you so that you can share the recording. It doesn't record on your PC like Skype for Business did. It records into the cloud, into your Office 365 cloud, and puts it in something called Stream, and allows you to then share that recording quite easily or view it at your leisure. I'll leave the recording running for a second or two to give us a little bit of time. That chat window, of course, allows you to chat between people while you're in the meeting. If you want to have a conversation with people and not interrupt people by saying something, then leverage the chat function. Very, again, similar to Skype meetings, you could use chat, but unlike Skype, it doesn't disappear after the meeting. You'll always be able to go back to this chat, either by searching for it, by searching in the top, perhaps there's a phrase you used in the chat, or by going back through to the calendar and opening up the meeting itself. There was one last option I wanted to show you on those triple dots, and that is, I'm actually going to stop recording so we can see what that looks like. I do want to stop recording, thank you very much. That should say it's now going to be updating that. That'll process that in a second and change to a link so that you can see what's going on in it. Well, the last option I wanted to show on the triple dots was to turn off incoming video. Now, at this point in time, the internet may well be a little bit stretched, particularly as we are all working from home. And one thing that can have an effect is all the video streams coming in from various different people. If you have a little bit of a network issue or an internet connection problem, then you may want to turn off all incoming video, which will reduce the amount of the network you're using and may at least allow your meeting to carry on a little bit more reliably, perhaps. I've shown you the chat window. Probably the last window to show in here is if there was somebody I forgot to invite to the meeting, I can click on the little people icon and I can then choose to invite somebody else into the meeting. I could choose to invite my friend Harry, for example. If I chose to click on Harry, if he's signed into Teams, that will immediately go and call Harry and bring him into the meeting. it will show as an incoming call to Harry in Teams and say, you've been invited to a meeting, do come on in. If I sent it to somebody externally, it would then send them a note and tell them that they need to pop into the meeting. It also, by the way, shows you what people did as far as whether the meeting was accepted or not. So here you can see that I'm the organizer. I invited Louisa, but she hasn't responded yet. So I can tell that tracking information that you normally see in a meeting, you can tell quite easily by looking at the people icon in the Teams meeting. And if I finish with the meeting, all I need to do is to click the hang up button, which is the big red button, of course, and I can choose to hang up the meeting, which leaves the meeting. The meeting carries on for other people until, of course, everyone has left the meeting. This one here is still updating and processing that recording. That will change. This little link in the chat window for the meeting will change to say the recording is now available. You will also get an email which will give you a link to the recording as well if you were the organizer or the host of that meeting. So that's very quickly taken you around the meeting, what it looks like to join, what it looks like to create the meeting, what it looks like when you're in the meeting and working with it. It's touched a little bit on meeting notes, which you might want to take advantage of. I could upload some files into the meeting if I wanted to. As I say, I can go back to that chat session at any point in time. I can even search for things that might be happening in that chat session. And if I need to, I can always go back into this meeting by looking at my calendar. So if I go to calendar, I can still see the meeting, of course, is there. I click on the meeting and then I can go through to the chat window if I want to see anything else that might well be in place. Now, we've rapidly gone through a lot of stuff and we're actually at the top of the hour. Let me come back across to the other side of my arrangement and just check with Louisa. I haven't checked with you recently. Sorry, Louisa, have we had any questions come in?
Just now, one question. Do
Excellent.
other participants know what someone is recording the meeting?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So when we were in the meeting, and I suggest if you want to rewind back about 5 minutes back into the meeting we were looking at, across the top of the meeting window, it will show that the meeting is being recorded and let people know. It won't go away until they choose to dismiss that warning. So it will show you that warning if needed to let people know, anyone who's in the meeting, that it's being recorded. Great question. Thank you very much. Have you had any others?
No. Nothing
Not
else.
yet.
Not yet, yes.
Wicked. Okay, so what I did want to do just before we wrap up is to post up a couple of links, and the link I'd strongly recommend that you go to is support.office.com/teams, where there is a wealth of information. Don't forget, at the top right hand corner of this Skype broadcast window, you can choose to visit our website and contact us through there, or find out more information perhaps about Cadence Innova, so that we can engage with you and help perhaps at this particular tricky time. You can view this session at any time by clicking on the same link. Obviously you've probably got to that by now, but you can also post questions still in. We'll keep the question and answer session open over the course of the next few days. You can then post questions in there and we can answer them for you, so I hope that helps a little bit. Or contact us at opportunities@cadenceinnova.com, and then we can help your organization or you even further, possibly in the future. If we just pop back to Louise to see if there are any questions that I might have missed, or other things that people have come in with.
Nope, nothing.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. It's an active day out there. In which case, that just remains for me to say thank you for your time today. We're about 3 minutes over time, but that's not a problem, hopefully. And if you do have any other questions, as I say, pop through to our website, contact us, details in through there, or please do drop a note to opportunities@cadenceinnova.com. In which case, it just means I need to say thank you very much for joining. I appreciate it. Please stay safe and stay well and stay at home. I hope things are working well for you. Louisa, thank you very much indeed for helping with questions and answers.
Thank you.
It has been a pleasure to speak to you all. Thank you very much. Do join us for other sessions at the same place where you found these sessions. You'll be able to join up for other sessions. The next one coming up at 1:30 today is a little bit of a deeper dive into collaborating with a team of people using Teams. So I hope you can join us for that. If not, otherwise, have a nice day. Please enjoy the rest of the week and stay safe and well. Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.